Jebovah, pilgrim through this barren land. I am weak, but thou art mighty. Hold me with thy powerful hand. Bread of heaven, bread of heaven, feed me till I want no more. Feed me till I want no more. Open now the crystal fountain, whence the healing waters flow. Let the fire and cloudy pillar lead me on my journey through. Strong deliverer, strong deliverer, be thou still my strength and shield. Be thou still my strength and shield. When I tread the verge of Jordan, bid my anxious fears subside. Death of death and hell's destruction, let me safe on Canaan's side. Songs of praises, songs of praises, I will ever give to thee. I will ever give to thee. Guide me, O thou great Jehovah, pilgrim through this barren land. I am weak, but thou art mighty. Hold me with thy powerful hand. O bread of heaven, bread of heaven, feed me till I want no more. Feed me till I want no more. Good evening and welcome to this evening devotion. Like I promised last week, we are going to be looking at some of the great hymns of Christendom. And I have decided to start with this great hymn, Guide Me, O Thou Great Jehovah. And when I was looking at this hymn and trying to consider the lessons therein and its history, I decided that if we were to do it all in one go, we would be forced to rush too much. And so I decided that I'm going to step it. So today we are going to be looking at part 1. and hopefully tomorrow we will clear with this with the second part. So in part 1 today, I will be looking at the authorship of this hymn and the circumstances that surrounded its authorship. And I will also be looking at its first stanza, which I have pasted on the comments section. And so, and then tomorrow we will look at stanza 2 and 3, and then we will call it a day. So, guide me, O thou great Jehovah. I bet that even though it is not very familiar, maybe to some, to the majority of Christians, this is a familiar tune. Particularly for those of you who were brought up in the Reformed tradition, that is, in the Protestant movement, this is definitely a must-know hymn. For those of you who are in the mainstream Protestant churches, maybe those of you who are, I'm not very sure whether it was very common among the Catholics. I don't think so. I also don't think that it was very common among the Pentecostals. But of course now, all hymns are common everywhere now. There is no hymn that is particularly this denomination or that denomination. But this particular one, initially, it was part of sermon notes by this fellow called a pastor called William Williams. He hailed from Wales. Wales is part of the United Kingdom. Now, about William Williams, who lived in the 18th century, he was born in 1717 and passed on in 1791. He was in the Anglican Church, and at about the age of 20, he wanted to be ordained. Initially, he wanted to be a doctor. But there was this revival meeting which he attended. And when he attended this revival meeting, he was not going to the revival meeting so as to be fed or to be nourished. He was going to the revival meeting so that he could argue his case and show how it was impossible to become a Christian. So his intent of going to the revival meeting was not to be nourished. No. But then, as God had ordained, he was converted. He stayed on and prayed, and then he got converted. And he became a regular church goer. And he was part of the Anglican Church then. But the Anglican Church refused to ordain him. And when the Anglican Church refused to ordain him, that is when he went to the Methodist Church. And so he was ordained a Methodist pastor, and he spent most of his time in the vast area of Wales, walking and preaching the gospel and setting up various congregations. And it is said that this song may not necessarily have been part of a song, but part of the poetry that he wrote as part of his sermons. And this particular song, Guide Me, O Thou Great Jehovah, was inspired by the kind of hardships that defined his path of ministry, starting with the Anglican Church and not being able to be ordained there. And then as he walked around preaching the gospel in Wales, then he was inspired and thought about the life of the children of Israel as they crossed the wilderness of Sinai from Egypt to Canaan. And that is how he was inspired to pen these words that have continued to encourage Christians across the years, all the way from the 18th century to where we are now. This hymn has continued to inspire people, to encourage people. And so today we look at the first text, and the first stanza is about the journey of the Christian, because life for the Christian is a pilgrim. We are on a journey, and on this journey we need sustaining grace. And that is why the hymn writer remembered how God in Exodus chapter 16 provided a daily bread, heavenly bread, manna from heaven, bread from heaven for the children of Israel for the entire pilgrimage, for the entire wilderness years. And it became part of his prayer that God would see him through his journey. And it is also important for us to know that in this journey of faith, we need Jesus Christ, who is the bread of life. If you read John chapter 6 and verse 48, Jesus is the bread of life. Jesus is our manna today. As God provided bread for the children of Israel in their wilderness, so does he provide bread for our journey. And therefore, it is important for us to have a relationship with God, and it is important for us to have Jesus Christ on this journey, because life is a journey. And in this journey, we need God. We need the sustaining grace. We need God as the bread of life. So, my question is, do you have Jesus Christ as your bread of life on this journey? Let us be inspired and let us be encouraged by the words of this song that guide me, O thou great Jehovah, pilgrim through this barren land. I am weak, but you are mighty. Hold me with thy powerful hand. Bread of heaven, feed me till I want no more. May we be fed by this bread of heaven. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, and all of us say, Amen.